We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. Woo, woo. All right, so hey, I want to talk to you about cities today, but I want to talk to you about them in a very, very different way that you may have never been introduced to unless you have done deep dives into Neville's works or into the mystical esoteric side of the biblical symbols that are pretty much in every single book from the Old Testament to the New Testament. Everything that we look at is not talking about a physical place. It's not talking about a physical person. It's not talking about physical events. Everything that is being spoken of in Scripture is psychological. But everything in Scripture also is giving us tips and strategies and deep dives into what's going on here in the imagination. Now remember, the imagination isn't just simply something that you have been using since your childhood. It's better to understand the imagination like a multi-dimensional space that you enter to become whatever it is that you want, right? And remember, it's always about becoming, never having. You're manifesting because you become it, not because you have it. Now, but I want to talk to you about cities, okay? Because if you've never been introduced to the work of Neville, or if you have and you haven't run into this yet, it's actually very important. And we're going to actually break this down for you, okay? So cities are states. Yeah, that's funny, right? No, but they are. So cities, in the esoteric understanding of what they are in Scripture, are states. Now, a state is what? A body of beliefs, okay? So then what does that mean when we're talking about the story, like let's say of Sodom and Gomorrah, and they're being destroyed, okay? And these are all psychological. Everything that's happening in that story is psychological. That means it's, if there are two warring ideas, then that means it's like you have two warring ideas in here. Okay, so if you hear about wars in the Old Testament, it's not happening out here. It's talking about what's happening here. Okay, between two different ways of thinking or two different belief systems that are fighting against each other. Okay, are you with me so far? So cities, in and of themselves, are representative of certain beliefs or bodies of beliefs. Because remember, a state is a what? A body of beliefs, not one. A body of them that support each other, okay? So, for example, if you look up the word Galilee, okay, in the New Testament, right, then you end up getting the word encircle. Now, remember, when you're doing deep dives into language, especially scriptural languages, they talked in a lot of symbols themselves. So meaning the words they chose weren't just words. They tended to be word pictures, okay? And then also words that they chose would change depending upon the context. And so sometimes you would find one word that has 12 different meanings. And no, that's not an exaggeration, right? Same with Greek language, okay? And that's the predominant use in terms of what these two major languages are when they have been written and used by the authors and the esoteric writers of these. Yes, you have Aramaic, you have Ugaritic, right, which is a Canaanite language, which would have influenced a lot of this, Phoenician, which would have influenced Aramaic, and so on and so forth, right? So yes, you have other languages that are impacting our understanding of these words. But the reason why I'm going into this, right, is to show you the depth of what's being said and why it's important for us to understand this. Because otherwise, it's just cool little pieces of information. But when we go back to Galilee, which was a city, right, and apparently a city today as well, and I'm not against the idea of that being true as well, that there is a physical place called Galilee. But when the writers were writing these, their intent was not to try to point us to a physical geographic spot, right? Their intent was to point us into the inward geography of our thoughts, okay? The inward geography of our mind, all right? So again, Galilee means to encircle, right? And remember, this is actually a great example of why cities also mean that they're states, which are a body of beliefs. Because what are you encircled by? You're encircled by, which means you are full on living through and you're protected by, and you're guided by, and encircled by your beliefs, right? So Galilee, right, is a city that is a psychological metaphor about what we're encircling ourselves. What are we doing? What are we believing? What beliefs are we accepting as true? Because dependent upon that will what? Will actually guide us about what we think is possible and what we think is not possible. So of course, changing those, right, moving from city to city, as the New Testament says that Jesus did, is moving from state to state. You're changing beliefs to change to better beliefs, and so on and so forth, right? So then again, you go to Sodom and Gomorrah, right? These are two cities that are very well known, misrepresented and misunderstood, but they're basically the old states that you want to destroy. So when it says God destroys, we're not talking about destruction in the physical warring sense that we've, unfortunately, in our political world, have justified so much violence because, well, God said this in the Bible, right? So do you see how dangerous that is when you read the Bible literally? So what you have to understand is that cities represent your states or your body of beliefs. So what you do, and I would encourage you to do, and it's fun to do, is to do deep linguistic dives. What do I mean? Do not take the first definition of the Hebrew word as that which is what you are reading actually means. Why? Because a lot of what we have today is very layered by Christian theology, which means there's an intent, there's an agenda, okay? So you have to go deeper. It's usually the second, third, fourth meaning of that word where you'll actually get the intention of what was actually written by the esoteric or mystical authors, okay? So again, every city means something different because it's pointing to a body of beliefs that we've accepted or that we accept about ourselves, and the story's telling us something about that, right? And so, again, do deep dives in this. It's actually quite a fun project. I'm going to be doing not a Christian one, but I'm going to be doing a Bible study on my Discord group. Make sure that you join that. Yes, it is a paid fee, but it's very cheap. We're going to be doing it for like $20 every time we meet. And jump on and join. Would love to invite you to become part of that as we go into a much deeper dive, because the more deeper that we go, you realize that actually it's not just telling you stories, it's telling you strategies. It's actually giving you practical tips. So join the Discord group. I'm going to be doing more of these videos anyways, but there's loads more to what the Bible has to offer for our own manifestation journey. So much love to you all. Be safe in the world, and I'll talk to you soon.